There will neither be a target date for achieving carbon neutrality nor for ending coal-fueled power generation in the joint agreement following this year's G20 Summit. Sunday's statement agrees to put an end to the provision of international public finance for new unabated coal power generation abroad by the end of 2021. On domestic coal, the statement only contains a general pledge to support those countries that commit to phasing out investment in new unabated coal power generation capacity. By agreeing on a watered-down communique on climate change, the G20 opted to keep the group united ahead of the crucial talks in Glasgow. For some analysis of the G20 Summit outcomes, we are now joined by Jacobo Ocharan, Oxfam's climate change lead in Rome. Mr. Ocharan, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the Globe.
Hi, everybody. Actually, I'm in Glasgow, so I'm already at COP26.
Okay, great stuff. Thanks for pointing that out. Now, well, some people have described the G20 communique as weak, lacking both ambition and vision, and simply a failure to meet the moment. What's your assessment of the G20 summit and the outcomes thereof?
Yeah, well, very similar to that. Actually, we are in the road. It's happening that the G20 is coming next, or is coming previous to the COP26. Most of the leaders are coming tomorrow here, and they will be, continue on this pledge of saying, yes, we are doing some work, but the work is not enough at all. As we are saying, we are in a climate emergency, and it's not just Oxfam, but most of the organizations working in around the world. We are saying that what it was agreed in Paris 6 years ago needs to be met by plans. And when we see that the national plans that every country from the G20 is presenting to this COP, to the world, is not enough. It's not enough at all. If we just put them together, we know that the world is going to be warming way beyond 2 degrees, 2.7 degrees by 2050, the expert says. And that's something that we cannot afford as a planet.
Yeah, Jacob, I mean, you've just said that the work that we're doing is not enough. And I suppose that it mirrors what has already been stated in the past by climate change activists and climate change stakeholders, institutions and organizations. What needs to be done, really, to ensure that the message of climate change filters down to the most important people and stakeholders?
Well, and I was saying particularly not that we are not doing enough, probably we can improve, but we are saying that the countries of G20 are not doing enough. But you're right, your question I think is very pertinent. What we need to be doing better is just to be able to bring what is a global claim and a global evidence that climate change and the climate emergency is generated by the development model that we have. And this is ending, the planet. So we are asking countries to basically two things. One of two is to transform their economies and their production in low carbon economies, okay? And being able to transform their energy sector, transport sector, agricultural sector, okay, in a way that is not emitting enough to destroy the planet. Yeah. And the second thing that we are claiming is, those countries that commit themselves to be investing 100 billion a year on stopping this emergency, to do it actually, because they are not doing it neither.
Yeah, and the G20 summit has committed to significantly reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, yet one gets the sense that the commitment is weak on clearly outlined deliverables, isn't it?
Exactly. What we get from G20 is a little bit of I will say some salt on a menu that is not good enough. What it counts here is the national plans that each country is doing. And this is clear, okay? They need to be saying how they are going to be reducing emissions by 2030, by 2050. And when we put that together, as I said, we see that emissions are still increasing by 40–50% by 2030, and we arrive, in this COVID and post-COVID world, we need to curve it down, and now it needs to go less and less every year. And we hear from these countries that they're saying they are going to be cutting on coal emissions and stopping, we hear that they're going to be increasing emissions up to 2030 at least. This is not affordable.
Yeah, and the reaffirmation to support green transition in developing countries by mobilizing jointly $100 billion per year annually through 2025 is something that is highly encouraging, wouldn't you say?
It is, but actually, basically, is postponing something that it was agreed in Paris. Okay, so in Paris 6 years ago, with the famous Paris Agreement, okay, it was said that, okay, from 2020, so from last year, we're supposed to be spending altogether 100 billion a year for that. We are still short for that. And we say now we are going to be doing on 2025. Okay, so this is still, running late on a commitment that it was made previously. When we arrive to 2025, we know that probably is going to be needed more than 100 billion a year. Okay, so that's the important thing. The thing is that is promising something that it was agreed, by last year, 6 years ago. So it's something that we are still running late.
Yeah, and the G20 Summit has offered very little new on climate, leaving an uphill task for COP26. I mean, this is not encouraging at all.
No, this is what I say. I mean, it's obviously the summits are coming as the way they are. I hope, or we hope, we will see the next 2 days that the world leaders, in the next 2 days here in Glasgow are going to be, at least committing or sending a clear message to their negotiators to be, more committing. But we cannot lose, and this is something that we are pushing all together. We cannot lose the commitment that it was taken and what we say the track of 1.5 degree. Okay, it was said that the planet cannot warm more than 1.5 and 2 degrees at the most. Yes. With the present plans, we are going way above, almost to 3 degrees. This is not affordable. So yes, let's hope, and I don't want to come with the bad news all the time. Let's hope that we see something reacting in the coming days in Glasgow.
Well, the greenhouse gas concentrations hit a new record last year, remember, and carbon dioxide levels have surged, rising more than the average rate, over the last decade. Would you say that the world leaders have set the right tone going into COP26 gathering in Glasgow?
Yeah, well, it hit, as I said, they're setting up, a better tone, and we are seeing, some movements. Definitely, this is looking better than 2-3 years ago in terms of the tone. Okay, so we see some of the key world leaders that they are, sending messages in the good direction, but we cannot avoid to look at that all together. Okay, and of course, the news that the partial news that we get from G20 about cutting on coal, for the coming years are good news. So we need to congratulate ourselves on this and to say, okay, keep going this direction. But we insist very much on this is not enough.
Do you see the willingness and, the intention of the world to, again, try to avert climate disaster?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the demand is on the street, and there is plenty of activists around the world working not just on claiming on the streets, as we see in many countries, in cities in the world, but we have plenty of examples of communities that they're already adapting and working either to transform to what is already happening, and they can suffer it on daily basis, as well as doing what we call a good transition to energy production and food production that is harming less the planet, that is emitting less. Okay, so of course, I mean, it's to me there is a disconnection right now in the, I would say, between billions of population around the world and the leaders, that they need to take decisions that sometimes are hard in terms of transforming the economy, but as you say, the people on the streets and on their normal lives they are already ready to transform, and they are already transforming.
And why is this our very last chance? And should we, for argument's sake, miss the boat in terms of adapting to climate protocols? I mean, what are the adverse dangers of that?
Well, it's about we as humanity and the planet, it's been clearly demonstrated by scientists that it has a limit of the amount of CO2 of greenhouse gas emissions that we can dump to the atmosphere in order to avoid the warming of the planet. Basically we are in a countdown, and if we keep emitting on the speed that we are emitting right now, okay, there is going to be irreversible consequences. If we keep emitting nine more years like this, it's going to be irreversible consequences. This is why we talk about the planet heating over 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees. It's clearly demonstrated that if the planet heats more than that, it's going to be irreversible transformation that is going to be dangerous for everybody.
Well, Jacob, the fact that many of these commitments delay action until after 2030, do you see these net zero pledges being achieved then?
Well, the net zero pledges are very interesting because actually the net zero, of course, we hope that they are achieved, but we want to warn everybody on this new fashion of countries and companies talking about we are going to be a net zero by X year. What net zero means that basically what you are doing is you are going to be polluting X amount, but then you are going to be compensating that with different actions like planting trees, etc. I don't want to get very technical, okay? But the idea is not that you pollute a lot and then you basically offset or you can decrease a lot of your pollution. The idea is that you decrease as much as you can your emissions. So this is why energy produced by coal, by fossil fuels, is increasing a lot the pollution. So we made a calculation that if we take all the net zero promises that we have by countries, there is not enough land in the world. You need the size of 5 Indias, okay, of trees, planting new trees to compensate that CO2 that you are going to emit. So it's not just compensating, but it's basically trying to reduce as much as you can your emissions, and then of course that you cannot reduce, then you can compensate, but the amount needs to be much lower. So yes, these promises of 2030, we feel it as promises, but we don't see, and still we think are not enough. The promises are not even enough. Okay, so this is what we are saying at this point.
What about those highly industrial countries which rely solely on gas emissions, for the sustenance and the sustainability of their own economies? What are the alternatives in terms of providing a cleaner environment for their communities?
Well, it's about the transformation of the energy sector. So it needs to go for, as we say, first of all, you can do 2 things. One is reduce the amount of energy that you need. Okay, so more energy efficient systems, to avoid actions, for instance, amount of transport that you don't need to be taking. So for instance, increasing public transport. So first of all, you need to reduce the amount of emissions, and then or the amount of energy that you need. And then the second part of it is obviously making it renewable, making it in a way that is not emitting CO2 to the atmosphere. So this is what we call an energy transformation, the energy sector transformation. That's the only solution that we have right now.
Okay, Jacob, lovely chatting to you. Thank you so much for your analysis on this matter.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Okay, thank you. There is Jacob Ocharan, Oxfam's climate change lead. He's speaking to us live from Glasgow, where the COP26 summit is being held.